Welcome back. Let's talk about the 4 different types of research questions that were mentioned in OLI. There are questions about making an estimate, testing a claim, comparing two populations, and investigating a relationship. The first type of question, making an estimate about the population, is something like, I want to know the average age of students in statistics classes in California. I can estimate an age by taking a sample of statistics students from students in California. Testing a claim would be something like, I think the average age of statistics students in California is greater than 19, but research shows that it's 19. I want to test the claim that it is 19 because I think it's greater. Comparing two populations would be, I think that students at Napa Valley College are more successful in statistics than students at Solano College. So I want to compare those two. I could test a claim about that, or I could come up with an estimate of what the actual difference is. Investigating a relationship could be, I think that there's a relationship between the number of hours a student watches my videos and their grade in the course. Is there a relationship, and what does that look like? So those are the types of things that we can look at. In a research question, we want to identify different types of characteristics. Remember that there are 3 things that we wanted to include. We needed the population, we wanted the variable, and we wanted the numerical characteristics. So here's an example of a question, and we want to be able to identify those 3 things. I have this question that says, do the majority of Napa Valley College students attend full-time? What's the population? What's the variable? What's the numerical value that's going to answer that question or describe that population? Let me point out some important pieces of information. So first of all, this is the question. Do the majority of Napa Valley College students attend full-time? Majority might not seem like something that's important to you, but majority means more than 50%. So you want to put that into your vocabulary bank, that majority is more than 50%. And then I'm talking about Napa Valley College students. And I also say attend full-time. So those are 3 different things that are important that are going to help me identify different pieces of information. The population is Napa Valley College students. The variable of interest is, what do I care about? What is this question about? This question is about attending full-time. So the variable is, do they attend full-time? And how am I going to answer that? It's either going to be a yes or no. They do or they don't. And the numerical value that's going to be able to describe this population then is going to be a percent. It's a percentage of how many do attend full-time. So I'm going to call that a proportion or percentage of Napa Valley College students attending full-time. Now we want to talk about observations, experiments, cause and effect, association, explanatory and response. These are some key terms that you will want to become familiar with so that you can identify and determine pieces of information from given scenarios. When I'm investigating a cause and effect relationship, I'm typically trying to determine whether one thing causes another. One thing causing another, that's 2 variables. So I am concerned with 2 variables when I'm trying to determine cause and effect. These 2 variables have names. One is the explanatory and one is the response. I'll define those later. So a researcher needs to design and carry out an experiment in order to gain evidence for a cause and effect relationship. I cannot determine cause and effect just by observing data or collecting data. I have to impose a treatment, or I have to manipulate the variable in order to determine whether something causes another. Otherwise, it could have just happened by chance. I don't know that it's the thing that I want it to be that's making the difference. When I'm not designing and carrying out an experiment to determine cause and effect, I can be dealing with an observation. Observation words that do not imply cause and effect are things like connected, associated, correlated, or likelihood. What is an observation then, and what is an experiment? An observational study is one in which no variable is manipulated. You are just gathering information. You are observing individuals and measuring variables to investigate an association, not a cause and effect relationship. I mentioned earlier, I can gather data and determine how many hours of video students in my class watched, and I can gather data in terms of what their grades are, and I can determine whether there's a relationship between hours watched and grade in the class. But I cannot say that watching videos causes your grade to be a certain thing. I can say there's an association or a relationship or a strong correlation, but I can't say that one causes the other because I'm not imposing treatments. I don't have one group that's watching videos and another that's not to be able to compare them and have some sort of control. There could be confounding variables that there's issues or things like that that I haven't designed for, and I'm not imposing treatment, so I can't determine that cause and effect. An experiment is one in which a variable is manipulated so we can determine cause and effect between one variable and another. How do you determine whether something is an observation or not? How do you know whether it's an experiment or not? Well, you have to read the information that's given. Are you told that you just collected data, or did you design some experiment where you're cooking a turkey at different levels in the oven, 300, 325, and 350, and you're measuring the doneness of the turkey? Did you drive your car at different speeds to determine how it affected your gas mileage? Did you plant tomatoes in light and not in light to determine whether light makes a difference? Those are types of things where you're manipulating a variable, or are you just gathering data? I surveyed people and I asked them questions. I mentioned these words earlier, but what's an explanatory variable? What's a response variable? The explanatory variable is the thing that you change that you think is going to explain the cause and effect. If I think that smoking causes cancer, then I'm going to manipulate somebody smoking or not. I'm going to give some people cigarettes and some people not cigarettes, and then I'm going to determine whether that gave people cancer or not. Highly unethical. So that's a whole other first do no harm. You got to make sure you're doing ethical things here. But that would be a situation where I'm manipulating the explanatory. I think smoking causes, so I'm going to manipulate smoking. The response variable is the thing that you measure. Did they get cancer or not? Oftentimes students struggle with identifying the explanatory and the response, and some tricks that I do is I'll say to myself, I'll take the two variables and I'll think about, does this cause that, or does this cause, I'll say them backwards to determine, does your weight determine your blood pressure, or does your blood pressure determine your weight, or depending on what the scenario is. But you have to think about also, what are you measuring? What is the thing that you're measuring? Are you measuring somebody's, like, are you given somebody's weight and you're measuring their blood pressure, or did you give them, something like that? Like, I'm measuring whether they got cancer or not. So the cancer is the response variable. So you have to think about what's the thing you're measuring and which one what's logical for the given question. There are confounding and lurking variables. OLI does not talk about lurking variables. They only talk about confounding variables. Lurking variables are things that we don't account for in an experiment, but they can have an impact on the response variable. A confounding variable is one whose effects can't be separated from the explanatory variable. Let's say I design an experiment where I'm planting tomato plants and I'm trying to determine whether a fertilizer works or not. And so I designed a study where I've got two different plots and I plant my tomato plants in them, and I give fertilizer to one and I don't give it to the other. But it just so happens that the ones I give fertilizer to are in the sun and the others are not. So I don't know if my tomato plants grew because of the sun or because of the fertilizer. That's a confounding variable. It could also, there's some other lurking variables that could be in there. You could say maybe moisture or different things that you could think of that are unaccounted for but could have an impact. So those are called lurking variables. Things you include in the study are confounding or not. Things you don't include are lurking or not. So again, a confounding variable is one whose effects cannot be separated from the explanatory variable, and a lurking variable is one that is unaccounted for in the experiment that can also have an impact on the response variable. Head on over to video 3 to finish up this module.